Hi, it's me, Jesse. Today I just wanted to teach on a spiritual topic, a thought that has been on my mind like all this morning, and that topic is the topic of war. Now, many of us, when we hear about war, we instantly think it's an evil thing. It should be avoided at all costs. There should never be any war. But I've come to realize that even despite this infamy, there is a place for war. War isn't all bad as we suppose. And yeah, I started thinking about this topic like this morning when I'd gotten up and I was reading a history book of which the author started teaching on a certain war or wars that had happened back in the 1500s. He was talking about Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire and how he became the man to defend Europe from the Turks when they were invading into his land, into Europe. And he talked about how the Turks, like how they gained their power, and how because of their power they went to do other things. And it was because of that I started reasoning about the topic. And I realized that despite his bad reputation, it's not necessarily all out of space. There is a right space for war. Now, to explain that, I'm going to explain like the opposite of war. The opposite of war is what we call peace. There's always war and there's peace. And you all know, like in common terms, when people are dealing with each other, they always say, hold your peace. Hold your peace. Or let them have my peace of mind when they want to retaliate. And what the word peace really means is like a cake. When there's a whole cake, say there's 3 or 4 people, everyone will cut a part of the cake for themselves. That's the origin of the word peace. That this is your portion, this is your amount. And over time it came to mean in general what we call peace. But it really just means allotment. So peace is allotment, and war is when you go to fight and make claims, or go and take what you believe you need or deserve to justify yourself if you must. Now, you all know the word sword, but have you thought of the idea that there's a word similar to sword that isn't quite sword, and it's a word we use all the time, which is the word. But sword is word with an S in front of it. That's what sword is. It's a word with an S in front of it. And the reason why people fight is because people swear. That's one reason. And wars aren't always just. Sometimes it's completely plain and outright wicked. People are just doing evil things. But sometimes too, wars are necessary. Now, when say a criminal is doing his thing and you catch him, you say, hey, what you're doing is wrong, don't do it. It's not necessarily such a bad thing that they have to put him in prison, but you can't keep doing this, you can't keep doing this, you can't keep doing this. And then it keeps on doing it and keeps on doing it and keeps on doing it. Now, the people whom he's doing this to can either keep warning them or they can do something about it. And that's how the word sword was invented. Because you would tell someone who is infringing, no, don't do this. This is my right, you can't overstep it. This is my place, this is my place. But over time you realize that a person is dead set on doing that evil which you keep wanting him not to do. So he realized that words aren't enough. The person won't hear you. So what do you do? His son keep doing what he's doing. So now we resort to the sword. And there you go. There you have the word sword. And the sword is synonymous with war. When you say war, you think of the sword. Now, in these modern days, we don't fight with a sword anymore. We fight with guns. But do you know how guns were even invented? The sword is the word for war. It has been from the beginning of time, and it should be now, but it is no more because we fight with the gun. But don't fool yourself, they can ignore this idea because no longer fight with swords but with guns. Because guns were invented as a means of mass death. The way that guns were invented was that since the foundation of the earth, foundation of life on earth, since Adam and Eve fell into sin, and God judged that on the day you surely eat of it, you shall surely die. In order the descendants of Adam were to die, you were no longer to be immortal. There was a science developed, and this was actually, I learned this also from the book that I mentioned of early on. There was a science, not my ideas, but about this. I'll explain. There was a science developed, and we all know about it. It's called alchemy. And alchemy was actually derived from an Arabic word, but the Greeks did it, the Egyptians did it, the Arabs did it, and the Asians and the Chinese did it. Most cultures of the world did and practiced alchemy. Even Isaac Newton, the Christian discoverer of the force of gravity, he was into alchemy as well. Now, what alchemy is there's two folds to it. On one end is the search for immortality, and on the other end, it was the search to find a philosopher's stone that could turn base metals into gold. Like most of us know about the other angle of it, of making like lead and such into gold. But many of us overlooked that it was actually developed as a way of finding a way to find the elixir of life, so that when you drink that elixir, you cannot die but you live forever. That was the foundation of alchemy. That's why alchemy was invented. People wanted to find a way to live forever, and in them wanting to find a way to live forever, to find the philosopher's stone, they researched and trialed and did this and did that and did that for thousands of years, on and on and on. We're trying to find the elixir of life, the potion of immortality. And if you've heard of the account of Saint Germain, they say that he was immortal because he had found this elixir of life, for like historical reference or myth. So alchemy was invented for man to try and find a way to cheat God, so that we won't have to die like God said we have to die because of our sins, but live forever and not be liable to the consequences of our evil doing. That's how alchemy was founded. And guns, or rather gunpowder, was discovered through the Chinese trialing on alchemy to find the elixir of life, to find a potion to live forever. And so in them doing so, they came across gunpowder, which also became the base of guns and now modern warfare. So really, people looking to find a way to cheat death, in the end invented the greatest weapon for mass death. They started to cheat death, but all it did was create more death, and death multiplied 1,000 times over. So yeah, we don't fight with swords anymore. We fight with guns. But even guns is based on us as human beings trying to cheat our God of the judgment He put on us for us having disobeyed Him and destroyed us and destroyed ourselves, and destroying ourselves. So that's like the cause or the foundation of guns and gunpowder and how we fight today. So if you're gonna say that my point is void because of that, that's the back history of it. It's the product of us trying to cheat God. In the end, we got cheated. So yeah, back to the topic of war. War is when you go and you know that diplomacy can't work, or say you're a wicked man and just want to get something. You go and take what you think you need or what you think you want by force. So the sides array themselves and they go at each other in the hope of one lodging the other off and taking his place. That's war. And it's a resolution when someone has sworn and is dead set on getting what he wants, or it's a resolution when, because someone has sworn and the other has the right, they want to go and take what they believe is their right. Now, generally it's wrong. But you cannot always choose to stand on the middle ground or the just ground, because in terms of war, or I've started in the most justifiable cause. Say your enemy wants to come and invade your nation and take what's rightfully yours. You won't just let them come in and do what they intend to do. So you rise up, defend yourself, and repel them. That we all understand is basic in our minds, that if someone wants to come to unjustly take what's yours, you're going to strengthen yourself and repel them so you can live and have your peace. That we all understand. But there are other levels or angles of war, and that's what I want to explain. Like we all live in a fallen world. We live in a world that's become sick by sin or by evil doing. And in such a sense, we all many times have to make drastic actions. We all many times have to do things that we don't necessarily want to do. Now, I'm going to explain. In this world, doing evil is to know, and having to survive is another norm also. At the time of Charles V, of the Habsburg dynasty, the Habsburg, in the 1500s, Charles V became the Holy Roman Emperor in 1518. And when he became the Holy Roman Emperor, the Turks, because of them wanting to invade more and more, were intent on coming to invade Europe as well. And the emperor was the hope of staving the Turks. The Turks never succeeded in invading Europe. They had to go back. They kept on skirmishing back and forth for so many years afterwards. But he was to defend his people's lands from the Turks, and the Turks were also to invade. Their justification was that for them to keep their empire alive, for them to keep the people happy and prosperous, they had to get in the provisions for them to live. Now, initially, that happened after 1453, when they had conquered Constantinople, and the population had dropped down to 50,000. That when the population had grown to a large enough number, they had to offset to get their needs from elsewhere, so they started conquering. And in conquering, they went to the Mediterranean, dealt with there, fought against the king of Persia. And when the king of Persia challenged them first, so they fought for them for a just reason. It wasn't just to take. But after they had dealt with him or them, then they were able to go and conquer Egypt. So then they had access to all the food, all the grain from Egypt. But then after they had conquered Egypt and they could get the grain from Egypt, that they had to they preferred to ship them from Egypt to Turkey, where they were. But then in so doing, they started encountering pirates, and so they started conquering more land to get rid of the pirates. Then they started encountering European pirates, so then they became aware of the Europeans. Then eventually they were at the European doorstep with Charles V to repel them. That's the history. Now, like I said, war isn't necessarily a good thing. Whether I'll avoid war, but would you rather that if you had a family, that your wife and kids die, than some other family you don't know goes, so that the ones that you love are protected and can live, prosper, and thrive? Like the saying, the strong shall survive, and the weak they perish. They don't eat. So apart from the obviously justifiable, there is also the point of necessity. When, say, you're not necessarily right, but you need something, you have to get it from somewhere. You choose to decide that my needs for me and my people, I love my people more than I love them. So I'm going to go and take from them what I need, so that me and my people can live and survive. Survival. Men have to survive. That's the second token of war. One, if someone invades you unjustly, repel them. But two, unfortunately, I need something. I want to live. I don't want my family, I don't want my children to die. So I have to go and get. And that idea is the cause of crime in much parts of the world. The people I need, they can't get it from me. So because no one will give them any, they go and take. It's not necessarily right, but there is a justification for it. If you love your people, you want to make sure they're looked after. You don't just ignore them or have them suffer just so you can be good. Like even in the Bible, Solomon said in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, don't be righteous overmuch. As in, there is a place where righteousness is, but you can say say at a point, it may not be right, but my needs are high. I need to get this. I just have to go and get it. And it may not be, it's not right to steal, but if you need something, that's the only way you're gonna get it. That's what you're going to do. So on the same angle, that's another justification for war. That you're in need, and so because you're in need, you have to go and take what you need so you can be provided for. So when you put that angle into the mix, then you realize that war isn't necessarily that avoidable. Because as much as it's evil to the people you do it to, it's love to those you reward with when you go and take, or you go and contend for what you believe you need to get, even at such an costly price. So on that accord, war isn't so bad. Even if you can say it's not right, but if you need for your people, and that's the only way they can be provided for. If you love them, you don't really have too much of a choice. So in that sense, there's loss in the unctions of it. But yeah, it's called peace and war. Peace and war. I need my peace, so I have to go and get what is right from this man. I want you to keep your peace, but you won't, so now I have to put you in place. You are coming and just to take from me what is mine, so I'm going to repel you. That's war. 3 reasons for war. And so in that context, war isn't so bad. But Charles V, he repelled the Ottomans, and it is said that whilst he was in office, his chancellor said something to the extent of saying that God has blessed him and been merciful to him, that he should protect the Holy Roman Empire and unite them as one. And when his chancellor said that, the other kingdoms in Europe, they started to rebel. They didn't want to be ruled by that one man and his family, because the way he got into power was that he had his children marry various monarchs in the continent, and then through those marriages and through like some suspicious deaths, I'd say, his descendants, his people, became like kings and princes such and such, that when they had taken enough thrones, he himself was made the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. That's how he came to power. And from him being the hope of Europe against the Ottomans, and from him having been exalted in the statement I mentioned, and the people rebelling, the Ottomans and him and all that was going on was actually this at the same time when Martin Luther put his 95 Theses on the church door. And it said that what Martin Luther did, it wasn't unknown, but because of the climate of the times, it shot up and prospered heavily. Everyone had a say on it, and that's how the Protestant Reformation started around about this same time that I'm talking about. That's how it all started. Now I want to put another thought on war, and like I said, it's peace and war. My peace, your peace, and how we collaborate. And that's like, in a strange sense, or in a very clean sense rather, the love and the coldness is what gives our lives and the rule of law, or the rule of law, or the rule of laws, their beauty. Because when you think of it, we all have our freedom. We all do what we do. We all have our lives. But when there's codes or ordinances put here and put there, and sat here and sat there, and in our innocent world, we know that people can breach this, their codes, their courts, their ordinances. But we know how things work, and how things are to be ordered, and how things are to be set in place, and we do and make plans, and we do our best to make our society work and be beautiful and prosper and follow a clean line that in such an accord, like when enemies come up or when trouble starts, and we have to make a way of resolving it, and say in the circumstance of making these resolutions, certain people aren't cooperative or aren't honest or aren't consistent. We make judgments like, because of this, because of that, and such. That becomes the beauty of our world, and that becomes the beauty of our life, and that becomes the beauty of our societies. When we all work together and things are all in order, or on the obverse, when after we're working together, a person chooses to do this and that, which is against the plan that we've made, to set and establish this or that, and we make judgments against them. We make plots to say this should be requisite, this should be requisited, this should be given, or this should be done in such and such. The order of saying, because you were inconsistent in this place, or because you lied here, or because you betrayed us, you deserve this and that, on account of those that their actions betrayed or offended or damaged. That and that kind of ordering is really the real beauty of our world, the real beauty of our life. That we can work together and function to make things work, to make things go in such a beautiful and lovely way. But then at the same time, we've designed and made allotments for those who breach our codes, so that our world can continue. Those judgments for you've done this, you get this, you get that. Or if you said you did this but you chose not to do this, all those judgments for breaches, they are the real beauty of our lives. Because when they are put together, when they are put on, and when our rules and regulations work, the outcome of that, they become the cause of our lives. And working order is beautiful order. Working sense is magnificent. That's how it works. And yeah, war isn't so bad. It's best avoided, but it's not so evil that it should always be avoided. And in the Bible, King David, who will many times fight for his people, and there's a story in the Bible of when a neighboring kingdom's king died, he sent embassies to his son to comfort him and to congratulate him for him coming into power. But then that new king cut off the the backs of their robes and shaved off their beards and sent them back in disgrace. And then when King David saw this, he prepared his army and sent them to go and fight and to destroy that city for what they did to his people. He was holding up his rights. He was disrespected. So because he was disrespected, he went to justify that. And also in the New Testament, reading about Paul the Apostle, it said that even despite all the teachings of Christ, when the Romans locked him up unjustly, or not even once, several times, when the Romans locked him up unjustly, he always asserted his right. He didn't just leave it there and said, Christ said forgive, so I forgive. He always asserted his right. And that was how he even went to Rome to preach to the emperor there in his household, because he asserted his right that he had been dishonored in what his rights say he should have. That's how he went to Rome, because he asserted what was his right as a Roman to do. And whilst I was walking down here, because I came here on a walk, I was making and saying to myself, as for this, it's only knowledge for me, because everyone around me seems to already know this. Because my mom, whenever someone does something that she believes is out of order, she will always go and get her requisition, get her place, go to court, speak to the authorities, whatever. She always asserted the right. And I've seen many other people doing that as well. But me, I was a bit soft. I like to let things go a bit. I didn't care that much. But asserting, using your rights, living in order, and knowing when to go against those who do unjustly against you is a foundation and a beauty of life. When you do your thing right and you make your plans go and prosper because you made sure it was in the light, you expect the same of other people, and you expect them to honor what is right and just to do in life. You don't just let them go and you can ignore like this wrong or that wrong because he's your friend or whatever. You have to let people know when they've breached the code, if they need to know. You have to let people know that what they did to you was wrong. You have to let people know that they should know their place, they should not do what they do right, and you do your part right. That things can always grow, progress, and prosper. That our society will get higher up and higher up and higher up and better than when we ignore the wrongs that people do. That people who don't necessarily know better get strengthened or fool themselves that their evil is okay because no one seems to care. And the people who are dead set to do evil will continue and pull other people into their mess until the whole society is becoming messed up, corrupt, out of tone, because people aren't standing up against the right things. Because people aren't doing what they should do. People aren't warning those who are doing wrong that they should quit doing wrong. There's a man called Tom Sowell. He said a quote that when people sacrifice truth to be nice to their friends, they throw their friends under the bus to save themselves, because they don't want people to be offended at the evil that they're saying to them, that they've done, that they should help them with. So they be nice and just play a nice guy. They save themselves, but they throw their friend under the bus. So we have to learn to take heat for a moment, that in the long run things will be well, than to be too nice now and have all the pain and suffering that could have been avoided happen then. Sacrifice of momentary ease is better than a tenor of pain and suffering, because you wouldn't speak the truth. So fighting in general is bad. We should avoid it if we can. It's destructive, it's offensive, it's painful. But there's still just grounds to fight when you need to fight. You can't always be light. And as I was mentioning Martin Luther, that's what he did. He had found the errors in the church. He didn't let it go so he can have his peace. He went and posted it and let everybody know the evils he had been seen in his church that he knew should not have been. And in the event of it, because like I said, what he did had happened before. It didn't necessarily prosper. But say he had thought, they've done this so many times, nothing ever happens, why should I bother? Then we wouldn't have had the Protestant Reformation. We will still be under the Roman Catholic Church in all its tyranny. But Martin Luther chose to take a hit. Martin Luther chose to stand for what he believed was right, to go and fight. And his fruits we all know now. So yeah, we have to remember that just because peace is good and just because peace is pleasant doesn't mean that peace should always be. If we never stand, if we never fight, if we never look to push the truths or the glories that we know, if we never choose to, even in the Ottoman text situation, like go and take land so that my people can be fed. If we never choose to fight for what we believe is right, our societies won't grow and won't prosper. We need to learn to be men. We need to learn to be people of valor. We need to learn to be mighty. And we need to learn to be champions. God bless you all. Bye.